Hey, it's Freitag. In this podcast, we interview business owners in New Hampshire and beyond to get their perspective on work, growth, and of course, the weekend. Join our host, Freitag marketing owner Jan Ziegler, as he interviews fascinating guests. We hope you'll enjoy this episode.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of It's Freitag. I'm Jan, and today I'm joined by Jeff Saari, who's a leadership coach here from Keene. We're actually in the same building with our offices. Welcome, Jeff.
Welcome. Thank you. I feel welcome.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It was a short commute. So you've been, like, so many people in the community know you. So many people in the community have, like, maybe not worked with you, but, like, been to your talks, and you just did one with the chamber. How did all of that start? Like, I mean, now you're like this leadership guru. Everybody goes to you for that, but back up, like, all the way to, like, way back when, you know?
Yes, I love that, guru, but that's a lowercase g, not an uppercase g. People say, oh, you're an expert. I'm like, yeah, lowercase e. So I was, I'm 53 now. In my early years, I wanted to be a professional drummer. And actually, my drum set's right upstairs, which is I still play. But I got derailed by a depression when I was 23 years old. So I was on my way to music school in Boston. I wanted to just be a freelance drummer to travel the world, all different styles. And this depression had other plans for me. So, I struggled with deep depression for a year in 1995, had multiple suicide attempts, and I came out of that. Actually woke up in a hospital bed, opened my eyes and said, oh, I'm never doing that again. I got to figure this out, right? So I went on a quest to try to understand my mind. And this is 23, 24, 25, started studying Buddhism and religion and psychology and spirituality and meditation, you name it. I was just like in a renaissance. Philosophy, I started reading Ken Wilber and all sorts of different things. Wicked cool time in my life, actually. And I was like, oh, wow, like I have more power over my mind than I thought I did pre-depression. And it was an enlightenment, honestly.
Okay. And so then you went to school for psychology.
I did, yes. But first, I sold everything that I owned except for my drum set, which I still have.
This is still the same drum set?
Same drum set, yeah. And I broke up with my girlfriend, who's now my wife. And I said, I'm leaving the United States. And I went to France to a 3-week meditation retreat with Thich Nhat Hanh, who's a famous Zen master. In southern France, in the vineyards, it was like, I could live here forever. But I had friends all over the world that I was going to go travel and just leave, to try to find myself, quote unquote. So I get to this retreat, and one of the monks about 2 weeks in his Vietnamese accent says, oh, you good meditator. You make, you become monk. Essentially, he asked me to become a novice monk.
And you're like, yes, there goes the rest of my life.
Yeah. Well, and so I was like, whoa, I didn't see that curveball coming. And so I remember that day or the day after sitting on a ledge overlooking the vineyard saying, what am I supposed to do? Travel the world like a nomad, be a Buddhist monk and sit in a cave, or go back and try to help people? Because I had figured my stuff out for a few years now. I was like, oh, I really love to help. I would love to help people. Dude, it was like hitting a meditation bell. Instantly, I had clarity. I got to go back to the States and figure out how to help other people with their mind, right? So then I fast forward, I moved back here and got back together with my girlfriend, who's now my wife. She took me back and just started going back to college at a ripe age of 28 or 29 and got my BA in psychology. That's when I found life coaching, actually, right after that.
Okay. And then that's what you've been doing, right?
So what I've been doing, I became a life coach in 2006, and around 2009, I became a business coach. Now, what the heck is that?
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I was just going to say, like, obviously there's therapy with therapists, behavioral or otherwise. Then there's business coaches. They teach you about business and, I don't know, implement EOS or something like that. And then there's you, and you're like in between a little bit. Is that accurate?
I am, yes. Yeah, so when people ask me in a elevator, they say, what do you do? And I say, I'm a business therapist, team doctor, and executive whisperer. And then they say, well, what is that? I'm like, well, I do these 5 things in organizations: strategic planning, executive coaching, team building or culture work, management training, and some life coaching, because people at work are also people. They also have a human life that they have to try to figure out, right? So that's, I know enough about business to be dangerous, but I'm not a business expert. I'm more of a culture and leadership, relationship builder, where you get to know yourself through me, because I just bring a method that works, that I've culled over time, to help people shift their perspective and their mindset to be better. Right?
Okay. But you did start, so you first started as a life coach, which is probably less business oriented and more like just people and their lives. Okay. What made you shift to business, or like business/life?
Yeah. So I was working as a life coach with a really good friend of mine who owned a house in Keene for young adults 18 to 24 coming out of rehab to transition into life, right? Real life. And it was a very high-end program, a lot of wealthy parents, and did that for a couple of years, and it was really, really fun. We were trying to grow the business, and it just didn't work out. The business kind of ran out financially, and I was stuck getting a job because I had an infant and I needed money. I was like 35 or something. So I got a job at the local agency here for folks with disabilities as a middle-level manager. And about a year into the job, which I stayed there for 4 years, the CFO, I'll never forget this guy. Every time I see him, I give him a big hug. Thank you for making me who I am. His name's Bob. And Bob called me in his office and he said, hey, Jeff, you're really good at listening. Do you do business coaching? And in my mind, I said, I have no idea what that means. But out of my mouth said, of course I do. Fake it till you make it. And I said, so what's your issue? And then he told me, I said, I think I can help with that. And I met his wife. His wife hired me on the spot. I had my first business coaching client in 2009.
Oh, so it wasn't actually him. It was his wife that needed help.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. And so then you helped her on the side with just her business. And that then kind of like grew into what it is today.
It was mostly word of mouth. They were part of leadership circles and they talked, and I did a good job. But I also did like brown bag lunches and some events, as you know, like I do events. I did all the networking events around, just getting my name out there. I did some cold outreach, but I had a network before that anyway, just because that's kind of my natural style, is just to get to know people. I didn't really realize I was a natural networker until I took I have a thriving business, but took the Strength Finder test, which we can talk about offline or even online, whatever. It's just an amazing assessment tool. It's like, you're actually a natural networker. I'm like, wow, yes, I am.
Yeah, but you didn't realize that before. You got this external.
Yeah, until you get this external validation of these 5 words that kind of describe you, and you're like, oh my gosh, that is me to a T. And so then you start turning it up.
Because you're like, I'm going to double down on this.
I'm going to double down because it's not draining. It's actually a strong position. I'm like, I want more of this. I want to be on stage.
Yeah.
And that led me to speak to the incoming freshmen in 2019, 1,200 incoming freshmen at Keene State College. Me on the big stage, huge PowerPoint, on like live coaching on the stage. I'm like, this is gravy, bub.
Yeah, I think it's really funny, right? Once you figure out what you're actually good at naturally, and you're not fighting like the things that you're just not naturally good at.
Yes, which we talked about in our first meeting a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, and I think that's it's so important, because I think sometimes, like, I have this a lot with about media and marketing, because people come to me and they're like, well, what should I do? And they're like, I don't want to be on camera, right? And I'm like, well, find, like, there's so many ways to talk. Find one that works for you. Like for me, it's podcasts, because I love talking. I hate talking on camera, right? Like, so like, and plus I don't like any of these sort of short form, super hooky, like precise. I'm not precise or concise, right? I like to talk and think. And so podcast for me is a great format, but I always tell people, I was like, find what you're naturally comfortable at, because that's the only thing you won't hate doing every time you have to do it. And I think that's probably like, so you help people find their strengths in a way, and like also figure out how to mitigate their weaknesses.
Yeah, I have what I call like my 6 pillars, and one of them is working on people's strengths. It's such an important avenue to explore with people, right? And there just happens to be an assessment at the Gallup Institute. It's the most widely taken assessment on the planet, honestly, based on millions of hours of research. I mean, think about that for a second. I tried to read the white paper after the page through. I was like, because I'm just not that research brain.
Yeah, no. any job that involves any white papers, I'm not qualified.
We're good.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it is a wonderful, and I can give you 100 stories of people learning about their strengths, and it's just fascinating. So
Yeah. So, kind of people do you mostly work with? Have you worked with? Like, what's like the niche? I mean, is it just anybody and everybody who's like, Jeff, I got a problem?
people do contact me through my marketing and through my website and stuff, and I will work with a big corporation, but my niche is small to medium-sized companies, and I like to start at the top. So it could be a manufacturing company that's $5 million revenue. I do work with a couple bigger companies like a bank, but I like the 50 to 100 employees. That's pretty cool. Even less, because you can get everyone in the same room. Work with an excavation company. Last week, 25 people. We had all in the diesel garage, sitting in a circle. I like to be on site because there's magic there in person. In the age of digitalization, it's great to have an in-person kind of presence. And so anyway, yeah, that's my niche is top executive or owner of a small to medium-sized company.
Because I mean, I think at that size, you can still have impact really fast, right? Because I mean, you don't like if you're like at a big corporation, like you start changing policies, like 7 years later, you might see the effects of it.
Exactly. Yeah, and I'm a one-man operation, so I don't have time for that, dude. I like the Wild Westness of small companies,
Yeah, me too. Like, I mean, like I think there's a reason. Like, I don't know where we're headed as an agency, but the bigger we get, the less qualified I feel like to run this thing. Don't tell anybody. But like mostly because I'm really good when it's fast and like when it's agile. And the more stiff we get, the less I like it.
Yeah, not liking it's different than feeling like an imposter.
It's true.
It's a little different distinction right there.
Yeah. No. I don't enjoy it. I enjoy being like, let's scrap it all and start from scratch. I think, and I've read a lot about, you have founders, they're really good founders. But
oh yeah,
when companies get really big, they're like, I'm not the man for the job anymore.
Yeah, and they probably should step off. They call that founder syndrome, by the way. It's a real dynamic. And I work with a lot of family-owned businesses where they're like, "Hey, Dad, it's time to step off," and he's like, "Nah, I'm good. I'll be here till I'm 80."
Yeah, like that helps nobody.
It helps nobody.
Yeah.
You just named it. You might have what's called in the strengths and it's called activator. They love to start stuff up and then go on to the next thing. Great for turnaround situations. Very dynamic.
Yeah. See.
And you push people.
Future career at McKinsey. It's great. Just come in, give like my very expensive opinion, and leave again.
Exactly. Yeah. There you go. Leave this to run, with your staff, and you're like
poor Alana. So obviously, you have this approach where you're like, well, work doesn't happen in a vacuum away from life. So like, obviously, burnout is like a big thing that you work on people with, like how. And I mean, to this podcast, listen mostly people that are somewhat in charge of something. So they all have like a lot of responsibility, all probably have been close to burnout or not aware, but just stressed, which is like the pre-stage, right? It's like permanent stress.
Yes.
Where do you start?
Good question. Well, someone may know they have a problem, right? And so they're looking for help. And that could be a therapist. A lot of people I have started working with have had a therapist before. Although I have to say that coaching is way different than therapy, and we make change way quicker than therapy does, honestly. That's from just my own experience. Some people don't know they have a problem. So someone, usually a younger person, will say, "Hey, Jan, you are a little grumpy these days, or you seem really just tired."
Because I'm just German.
Yeah. It's just I'm German, bro.
Yeah, or like, dude, like, wrong guy for optimism and positivity.
You're like, this is my face, bro.
Exactly. It's genetics. Can't help it.
You've heard of RBF. Yeah. I had one client who literally has RBF, and she's like, dude, this is my face.
Yeah. What am I going to do?
Smile, and then just a little crack on the side goes up.
Yeah. It's funny.
So, someone might say, boy, you really need help. And, I do? You need a business coach. What's that? A lot of my clients are 50 plus years old. That's my avatar, is between 45 to 60, mid to late career professionals. They've been around the block. They may or may not be in touch with technology. And, some of these folks don't know really about business coaching. And so when a younger person who's more savvy about engagement and, engaging employees and work-life balance and all these things will say, you need some help, bub. And they're like, I do? Yeah, I do. Let me find you a guy. And then they find me either through word of mouth or through my marketing.
Yeah. So oftentimes it is not actually, it's not the idea of your client. It is the idea of somebody in your client's orbit.
It is.
Okay.
Yes.
Is that a hard sell in the beginning?
It's funny you say that. Yes, I do try to sell, I guess.
No, but I mean the concept, not so much you yourself, but I mean I just imagine the grumpy old, I don't know, manufacturing guy that basically is on the shop floor half the days and not really because I think younger people, the way I see it, they're much more aware of mental health. They and they have all these business. I mean, there's so much business content that you can consume.
Yeah,
I feel like they're much more plugged into that than older generation who's if I have a question, I go to my friend Jim.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah.
If they're coming on a call with me, they're at least open to the possibility, right? They're not being forced. I just tell people I never want to push a rope. Although, if you have someone in an organization that you need coached and they don't want to do it, you send them in to the principal's office. Once in a while, I play like the principal. Give me an hour with them, I'm telling you. Give you a quick example. I had one guy, I call him Rodney, and I'm doing this big gig at a company, and I looked over the corner, and he had his hands crossed, his arms folded, real scowl. I'm like, hey, Rodney, let me take a stab here. You don't like this touchy-feely bullshit, do you? He said, no, I don't, in his Mainer accent, I said, will you give me an hour? Just give me some leeway. The owner's right there, right? He's like, come on, Rodney. He's like, Rodney, okay, I'll give you an hour. An hour and a half later, I'm at the snack little station. He goes, hey, Jeff. I'm like, what's up, Rodney? He goes, when are we doing this again? Right?
Yeah.
So give me an hour. My skill is to listen and to help people have a safe place. I just ask a shit ton of questions. And people want to be listened to.
Yeah.
Right? They want to tell the story.
Yeah.
And ordinarily we don't have that space because we're ready to. Now you're asking me about my story, so I'm telling you my story. But if I was coaching you, I wouldn't be telling you my story. I might augment it with a little anecdote.
Yeah.
Oh, it sounds, Jan, like this client.
Yeah, validation.
But then I'm going to bring it back to you.
Yeah.
So I'm constantly on you like a ninja in the weeds. And people find that very refreshing. Yeah. And not only that, we really get at some root causes and make the assessment I think I can help you. Yeah. And if you want a proposal, I'm happy to sell it, try to sell that. And 95% of the time, they're like, please send me a proposal. And then we work it out.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. And so you said earlier that coaching works a lot faster than therapy. Why is that? Is that because you're less afraid of giving suggestions as to what the fuck they should do next?
Yeah, my particular style is to be in the trenches with people on site. So I get to roam around. They call me a rogue agent, honestly. Maybe that should be my title. Jeff Saari, rogue agent and leadership coach. Yeah. I get this free pass to go around the organization. Again, remember, it's small, 50 people, whatever. And I just get to know people.
You can talk to Susan and be like, Susan, what bugs you?
Exactly. Yeah. Hey, how you doing, Paul? What's going on today? Oh, that guy's really grumpy today. Oh, really? You mind if I go and say hi to him? you know, and I just get some intel. And as people trust me, they tell me stuff. And so then I'm a warehouse of all these different perspectives. Therapy is usually a one-off, or maybe you've got couples counseling or maybe a family unit. But I'm shepherding the whole company usually, starting from the top, right? And so when you have all that information and you create spaces to come together and prioritize and name these issues, it's amazing how quick momentum builds.
Well, and I think that the cool thing is that you are this apolitical agent that people trust, because you're not like, the boss's henchman. You're not like this COO that runs around yelling at people all day, every day to get their stuff done. But then also you obviously have the health, well-being of the company in mind, which is probably, you don't work for obviously the CEO or the owner is the one that writes your invoice or pays your invoice. But in the end, you work for the health of the organization, not anybody individually. And I think that's super helpful because, so for example, we right now, we go through this growth path. We have a bunch of new managers. And the first thing I'm like, you guys, like, don't forget, like, half of you is advocating for your people and half of you is like advocating for the company to your people. Like, you now, like, that is the role now. It is new. It's both sides, not just one way.
Yeah, and they need to hear that message, right? They need that leadership. And if a leader is oblivious or burned out, drained, or my way or the highway, whatever those negative styles of being or leadership are, then you're cascading that message down, right? And so you just named it. You see and by the way, the people don't leave a job, dude. They leave their manager. And so if you don't get your management right, if you just let them go and be free willy, that's not doing anybody a disservice, especially you with the high turnover these days. And you want to keep your people.
And it's the thing is, I think, I mean, we were a very young team, right? I think out of 22, there's probably like 4 over 30. So like very, very young team. And it's funny because what they prioritize, and even, I mean, I'm 32, right? One would think I'm not that far away. I'm kind of an old soul. So like, I think like when I look at what they value versus me, it's completely different. It's just like, when can we have a Friday off? And I'm like, what?
Well, and you understand that balance for people, that flexibility is important. Yeah. And you have a business to run. And I know you've experimented with different structures, I guess, right? Yeah. And the jury's out.
Yeah. I mean, who knows what's going to happen, but I think it's really fascinating. And so I think around here, especially, it seems like there's a lot of people that have, multi-generational businesses that have a really hard time retaining young people, like young millennials or even, Gen Zs. Do you encounter that a lot? That like there's this misalignment of like the old style of work, which is 5 days a week in the office, 9 to 5, half-hour lunch break, hard stops, and everything else is PTO, and you get 6 days. Like, is that a hard conflict right now in a lot of businesses, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of businesses I do work with, you need to be there, right? So it's not a remote thing like yours. Some can be worked out hybrid, but manufacturers, you need to be on the floor, pushing the buttons, pulling the levers. And yes, there is sometimes a mismatch as well. Not only just flexibility, but just the mindset of development, for instance. The young generation, they want to be developed, right? That's one of their number one needs. And that's, again, one of the main reasons why people leave organizations is their manager didn't have one developmental conversation with them in the last 6 months. I can't even imagine that. And I say to all my managers, don't ever do that. And set up a structure where you are holding it accountable, where you're meeting with them at least once a month. And going over, Gallup has another awesome instrument called the Q12. You should check it out. It's a 33-page playbook of how to engage your employees. It's insane. It's amazing. I use it all the time with my managers with training, and one of the line items is development.
Because basically people want to have a perspective of like, there's room for growth here for me. I can become more than I am right now. Yeah, I get that. I think that it's super important. I mean, I think there's some people, like from my organization, that they're happy where they are and they don't really want to become a manager, or, like they don't want to take a step up. But there's other people who are like, they like cannot wait.
Yes.
It's like, they're like, please give me something that I can grow into.
That's right. And that may not always be apparent what that is, but as you grow, you talked about EOS, seats open up on the bus. Yeah. And when leadership teams collaborate on the org chart and the growth of the company, they see what kind of seats are needed, right? For instance, I see this all the time when a $4 million company becomes $5-6 million, like, oh, now we need to have a part-time HR person, or now we need to start thinking about a CFO, or, just some other seats on the bus. I have a big nonprofit that like, boy, we really need a director of quality assurance for our programs because we're not capturing the metrics enough, because John does some of this and Susan does some of this and Pat does some of this, and they're not communicating well, right? So by developing people and understanding what their strengths are, what their needs are, where they want to go, connecting them to your mission and your vision as an owner, man, it has people stay longer. And then when seats do open up, you're like, ooh, Jan might be perfect for this. And we've been grooming him to be thinking about this, right?
Yeah. And I think it's really fascinating. Like for me, it's, except for like, actually helping businesses, like growing people within our organization is like the most fun, because you they have so much knowledge. Like, because I think especially if you hire managers, like from the outside, you always be like, well, and here's how actually your, like, like your team does the work every day, and this is how it's done. But like, we made one person on our team from an admin assistant to, a content manager. Now she's like the head of the content team, which I think is 4 people or 5 people. And it's fantastic because she knows every nut and bolt in the company because she's done everything. And one of the best managers because she's done like grind, and now she manages it, so she knows exactly how long something is supposed to take, and that kind of stuff because she's been there. And I think that's like with external managers, much harder for them to grasp.
Yeah, I see that. I see that over and over. And by the way, I love that because I have some managers that are that in the weeds ninja. Then they come out and they still want to be in the weeds.
Yeah.
So you have to coach and train them. Yeah.
And I think it's really hard because we have that too. Like some people, they're still acting like they're the individual contributor and they're not managing like they should be. And I think it's super fascinating. And then obviously as like the organization grows, suddenly you have managers and we have like management levels. I'm like, whew.
Yeah. That's when Jan goes, okay, maybe I got to drop the mic here.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like,
move on. What am I going to do?
Yeah, exactly.
You know what?
Just podcasts now. There's Jan Ziegler podcast host.
Well, Alex Hormozi's wife, I just watched a video of him. When he says, whenever I have downtime, I mess my business up. My wife goes, go write another book, Alex.
Yeah. No, I think, but it's actually true. Like sometimes I have to like be disciplined about not coming around the corner with another idea because that just comes natural to me. So now you help a lot of businesses. You're also writing a book, and I want to talk a little bit about that. I mean, other than you being like, oh, I have so many great stories to tell. I'm going to write a book now because it's what people do nowadays. Like what made you want to do that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I love it. I'm getting older, so I'm 53. I don't feel 53, but evidently I am 53. So, I turned, I don't know, it was about a year ago or so. I'm like, how do I work smarter, not harder? I do love in-person work, but there's only one of me to go around because it is a party of 3, me, myself, and I. I started to think, like, what do I do? And I had been creating some content along the road ever since I started coaching, a worksheet here and there, whatever. But I'm like, what do I actually do? So I counted up all my tools. I have like 80 tools in my tool bag. When I go into an organization, I have these 2 invisible sacks that I'm carrying. And it's, they're just full of treasure trove of conversation pieces, right? Starters. So I'm like, what do I do? So I'm like, oh, wow. As I'm looking at it, I'm like, I really love burnout. I mean, I love everything. I do strategic planning, I do management training, all that stuff. So I'm like, I need to tell a story about burnout. And I have a method that works. So I went through 6 of my avatars, people that I helped change within 6 months from major drain and exhaustion, wanting to sell their companies, which is a family-owned company, which is like their dad started the company. And they're just like, peace out, I got to get out of here. Their marriage is on the rocks, whatever. Like they're in a really down position. 6 months later, they are raving fans of their business. Now unleashing this 6-pillar framework that I unleash in the book onto their company and to their teams, and magic happens, dude. So I'm like, I want to tell that story. And so I'm done with the first draft and I'm starting the revisions of this book, which don't know the name yet.
Mm-hmm. But is it kind of an overview of your philosophy, or is it more of a guidebook of like, hey, if you're a business owner, you're burned out, you're thinking about just dropping it all and running away, here is how you might want to look at things differently for you to change the way you do business.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And like I said, I do my 6 pillars. Like the number 1 is getting a handle on your stress, because we know burnout is a severe stress overload, right? It's different than just being a little stressed here and there. I mean, 75% of people in business feel stress every week, but we're talking about major severe distress, right? So you got to get a handle on that, and you got to do an inventory of what is niggling you, what small and large. So that's what I start with my clients, is I show them my signature STAR model, STAR, and that's in the book. And we find the situations that are really, they're not managing well. And we realize that you actually have way more control over your life than you thought you did pre-Jeff, PJ. And that's exhilarating when people go, oh my God, Can I give you a quick example? Last Wednesday, I was with a guy who's a high-level manager in a manufacturing company. He says, we're not doing well with this guy, we'll call him Jan. We have this thing, we'll call this the Jan rule. There's a Jan rule in the organization. He just does whatever he wants because he's kind of a bully. So I looked at this guy in the eyes and I'm like, well, why is that? Aren't you his boss? He says, yeah, kinda. He just does his own thing. I'm like, well, but you're technically his boss. He says, yeah. I said, so why are you letting Jan have the Jan role? He's like, well, I'm kind of afraid to approach him and hold him accountable. I'm like, well, and I say, I come with questions. And I'm like, why? I'm not grilling him. I'm just like, well, why is that there? And he says, because I'm afraid of conflict. And I'm like, well, why is that there? What are you afraid is going to happen? And it brought me back to when he was a teenager, someone yelled at him and he froze. So a lot of this stuff has to do with what I call the junk trunk, which is a euphemism that I created. All of our traumas are lodged in our body in this little invisible sac behind us, right? So this guy, Jan, is triggering up his trauma. And he's like, I can't do conflict because then I'm going to feel like I'm just going to let it run amok. And everybody knows it. And it's a big joke. And now he's the big joke. And he's not keeping it in check. And he's worried that because Jan knows so much about manufacturing, that if he leaves, he's going to take a precious, and that, believe me, that's a big fear that people have. Amazing conversation. Now my point is though, now he's onto it. Now we know it's there. Now it's not just kind of this like weird fuzzy thing that happens. He knows he's avoiding conflict, and now we put a name to it. And now we're going to challenge it.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think like I in the beginning had that, like, you know, the first time you have to fire somebody, you push it way too long. Like you wait so long, like, because you're like, no, I can fix this. It's like, there's no fixing this. And then you finally do it. And then like, you think, oh my God, it's going to be horrible now. And then it's actually just fine. And then 2 months later, you're like, I should have done this 6 months ago. But I think then you get over it, right? Even though it's really hard in the beginning because firing people is not fun. And now like my patience for, you know, that is very low. And like if I need to fire somebody, I just go about my day and do it. But like the first time you do it, it's like it takes 3 days of no sleep before you have that meeting, because you're like, ooh, this is going to be a difficult conversation.
That's right. And that's where this guy is at, and see, you've grown.
Yeah.
And that's my point. If I was there with you and I was working with you, and I've helped many people do their first time firing, by the way, and they've had the same experience.
Yeah.
Should have done it 6 months ago. But hey, shoulda, woulda, coulda, right?
Yeah.
It is what it is. You learn, and then you shorten the time frame for the next time, right? And you get better at it, which hopefully you don't have to a lot.
But I think like the funny thing is once you realize those patterns, it's like everything. Like the first sales call you've ever done, oh God, like I was sweating, right? Now I don't even think about it before lunch. Like,
that's right.
And I think it's all that, like, you just practice it. Like, you just need to do it more often, and then it becomes easier. Well, like the first time I recorded this podcast, oh my God, I was nervous. Like now I'm just like, well, I guess I'll just sit down with somebody and talk for half an hour.
Well, that's exactly right? We grow.
Yeah.
And I like discomfort. It's one of my personal values, discomfort on purpose.
Yeah.
Because getting into these new things, and that's what I try to, and that's in my mindset chapter, that's the 5th component of my 6, but is that discomfort's okay. Yeah. In fact, discomfort's amazing. I go into the cold water, right, in the 3 seasons of the year. Yeah. We cold plunge. Yeah.
No, so like that's where I draw the line for discomfort. I do like a warm shower.
Yep.
Cool. So when's the book coming out? Do you have a date?
I'm hopeful that it's going to be around September 1st.
Okay.
And I am, like I said, first revisions, and got to get a name, book cover, art, and all that good stuff. Launch team. I'm excited. Part of the book is also about work-life balance, and I have this thing called the Vision Wheel. I can make it. It's an assessment that I created. You can make it available to your listeners. It's just do this assessment, just kind of see where you're at with 8 components of your life, work just being one of them. And then you start making a plan for yourself to challenge some of the things you've really wanted to do or know you should do. One easy way is physical body, right? We all know we can do better at that. Eat better, exercise, sleep better, whatever it is. And so we pick one thing, right? And when you get some traction on that thing, under my watch or accountability, it's exhilarating and it's exciting because people go, oh my gosh, I should have done this 6 months ago, or boy, I look better, I feel better, and whatever. I just love that. Coaching is about an improved condition, whatever that condition is, right? Yeah,
it makes so much sense because I think when you think about coaching, like for example, like for athletes or something like that, especially at a higher level, the coaches are not really teaching them anything anymore, right?
Correct.
Like Usain Bolt knows how to run fast, but they are keeping him accountable to keep the right form, to do the right things. Like accountability partnership, right? It's not so much anymore like I teach you the skills.
Right. Yeah, it's like mindset. Where are you at? I love executive coaching because it's lonely at the top. You might experience this. You can go vent to your partner, I guess, but your partner has a vested interest in you, succeeding or paying the bills or whatever. And they sometimes have a stake and they want to give you advice. I don't do that. I just listen. I know what's in you. Now, I might have an idea, but I always frame that with like, how does that sound, Jan? And you get to say yes, maybe, or no, right? And so coaching, though, holds that space routinely, regularly, consistently to keep a high, I call it bring the A game, keep a high form so we don't go soft, right? We stay on it, whatever that on it is, your business, your life, your relationships. You want better stuff, so let's make it happen, right?
Yeah, so I love it. So before we wrap up here, let's sort of change gears a little bit. At the end of every podcast, I ask my guests what a good weekend looks like. Because we launch on Fridays, it's Freitag. So what do you do on a weekend other than like cold plunging?
Dude, I love this question. I just created a document for my daily and weekly routines, and it's 2 pages long. My wife thinks I'm nuts, by the way. That's all good. I kind of am. She's like, why do you have everything so like routinized? I'm like, I just need that plan, right? Okay. Yeah, and I could go through it, but I do some writing in my book. I definitely work out, hang out with friends. I have one best friend right down the street here, actually. It starts off Friday night. A lot of time with my puppy, some time with my wife. My daughter's now almost 17, so not so much time with her. She's self-sufficient. Eating good food, cooking. I'm into rucking as well. Like I put the weight on my back and just run or walk. Drumming. Definitely drumming on the weekends. Mm-hmm. I think you I don't like the word should, but it's nice to have a pursuit of mastery, like a musical instrument, because it's endless. Yeah. Of what you can accomplish on that thing and learn. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, because you never, there's no top to reach.
There's no top to reach. Even the best players are like, I feel like I'm just learning. Yeah. Right? So definitely a lot of drumming sometimes.
Whenever you have something that takes your complete focus, right, it helps. Because I think whenever I don't have anything that takes my complete focus, then I think about work. It's just how I am. And I don't mind it, but for me, it's exercise. It's like when I exercise, I don't think about work because I'm too busy thinking about exercising. So what are some of your favorite places to go to here in the region?
I like to go up to the Summit Winery. I sit there. They allow my dog to go in. I have this cute little Chewbacca dog. And I write for 3 hours at the winery. I do that usually on Saturdays from 12 to 3. It's a great spot. Overlooks Mount Snow. They have good red wine. Sip a glass of red wine, write my book. It's like heaven. Obviously, when I'm cold plunging, there's local rivers and stuff like that. There's beautiful lakes around here. I do open water swimming as well as a hobby. So I'll go to Silver Lake. Wilson Pond's like a minute down from my house, so it's a lot easier for me to swim to the island and back. But it's not as nice and clean and picturesque as somewhere like Silver Lake or, you live up in Westmoreland, right?
Yeah.
Or Alstead?
Spofford. Alstead. So Alstead. I used to live in Westmoreland where we have Spofford right across.
Spofford Lake.
Oh, and then we have Warren Lake in Alstead.
Yeah, gorgeous. Yeah.
That's awesome. Cool. Okay. Yeah. Well, how do people find you if they need help?
Phone's it's already ringing. Wow. Your listeners are so tapped in.
They're just we're all burned out too. Yeah. Can I have the first draft of this book, please?
I'm going to give you a link, or I guess you could put the link in your, it's just bebettermodel.com/vision. You can go there, download the assessment. So bebettermodel/vision, and you'll go bebettermodel.com/vision. And you can contact me through that. That's my contact page, but you can also get the free assessment. Mm-hmm. So do your life balance assessment. It's free. It can't hurt. It might hurt because it's going to show you areas where you're not showing up, and that pain is actually good. Yeah. So now you know what you're dealing with, right? Yeah. And reach out to me if you want some personalized help. It's been awesome. Thank you, Jan.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeff.
Appreciate it.
Well, that was a great conversation. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please leave us a nice review wherever you're listening to this. It really means the world. Our episodes drop every Friday, so stay tuned for more insightful chats from It's Freitag.